In the quiet suburbs of Austin, Texas, Emily Harper, a woman in her mid-30s, had spent over 5 years pouring her heart into being the perfect daughter-in-law for the Coleman family. From the moment she married into their tight-knit household, Emily dreamed of building a home filled with warmth and acceptance. Every morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the kitchen window, she was already up, brewing coffee, scrubbing dishes, and preparing meals for the family. Her specialty, spicy Tex-Mex chili or a perfectly grilled steak, never earned her a word of praise from her mother-in-law, Margaret Coleman. Instead, Margaret's sharp tongue cut through the air with remarks like, "A good wife knows her place," or, "This isn't a diner. Emily, don't get fancy." Each word stung, but Emily swallowed her hurt, believing that patience and kindness would eventually win their hearts. In the Coleman household, Emily was an outsider, a freeloader, in their eyes. Despite her tireless efforts, Margaret ruled the home with an iron grip, her voice echoing through the modest ranch-style house. Emily's husband, James, and his younger brother, Ethan, seemed oblivious to her struggles. They never stood up for her, their silence louder than any insult. Years ago, Emily suffered a miscarriage, a loss that left her heart shattered. When she confided in Margaret, hoping for comfort, her mother-in-law dismissed her pain with a cold, "Some things just aren't meant to be." The words burned, but Emily buried her grief, cooking, cleaning, and serving, convinced that endurance would prove her worth. The tension simmered beneath the surface until it boiled over, centered on a $1 million condo Emily owned in downtown Austin. She had bought it with years of savings from her job as a marketing consultant and careful investments, a safety net. A place she could call her own. To Emily, it wasn't just property, it was her anchor in a world where she felt unwelcome. But the Colemans saw it differently. They expected her to hand it over to Ethan, who was planning to propose and needed a stable place to start his new life. At a family dinner, Ethan casually suggested, "Hey, Em, why not let me crash at your condo? Rent's crazy these days." Emily smiled politely but stood her ground. "I'm saving it for my future. Maybe for kids someday. It's not up for grabs." Her words hung in the air, met with icy stares. Margaret's eyes narrowed, and James looked down at his plate, avoiding the conflict as always. The breaking point came at Ethan's birthday party, a lively backyard barbecue filled with relatives and neighbors. Emily had spent hours preparing a homemade cake and a thoughtful gift, a sleek leather wallet for Ethan. She wanted to show she cared, despite the growing rift. But as she set the cake on the table, a cousin's offhand comment about her condo sparked chaos. "So, Emily's sitting on that fancy downtown place. Huh? Not sharing with family?" The crowd chuckled, but Margaret seized the moment. She stood, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Selfish. That's what it is. Keeping a $1 million condo while your brother-in-law's scraping by? Shame on you." Before Emily could respond, Margaret's hand flew, striking her cheek with a sharp slap. The sound silenced the party, drowning out the country music playing in the background. Guests froze, but no one intervened, not James, not Ethan, not a single soul. Humiliated, Emily stumbled back, her vision blurring with tears. She collapsed, and concerned neighbors rushed her to a nearby clinic. Alone in the sterile room, the smell of antiseptic sharp in her nose, Emily stared at the ceiling, her cheek still stinging. Her phone buzzed with a single text from Margaret. "Don't bother coming back. This isn't your home." The words pierced deeper than the slap. As she lay there, Emily realized that 5 years of sacrifice, cooking every meal, folding laundry, keeping the house spotless, hadn't earned her a place in their family. She was alone, abandoned by those she'd tried so hard to please. The Texas sun hung low over Austin's sprawling suburbs, casting long shadows across the modest home of Emily Harper's parents. After 5 years of enduring the Coleman family's disdain, Emily, now in her mid-30s, returned to the one place where she was more than a daughter-in-law. She was a daughter, loved and cherished. The creak of the front porch swing and the smell of her mother's pecan pie baking in the oven wrapped her in a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Here, in this small house with peeling paint and a garden bursting with wildflowers, Emily began to piece herself back together, stitch by painful stitch. Her father, Robert, a quiet man with silver hair and a steady gaze, was her anchor. Over a cup of black coffee at the kitchen table, he revealed a secret that stunned her. He was a major shareholder in the tech company where her husband, James, worked as a director. I never told you, because I wanted you to build your life on your own terms, he said, his voice low but firm. But now, it's time to set things right. Robert's words were a spark, igniting a fire in Emily to confront the pain she'd buried for so long. He invited her to join him at an emergency board meeting at James's company, where whispers of financial misconduct involving Margaret, her mother-in-law, had surfaced. At the sleek downtown office, Emily walked beside her father, her heart pounding but her steps steady. The glass-walled boardroom was filled with executives, their faces a mix of curiosity and unease. James sat at the head of the table, his eyes widening when he saw Emily. She didn't meet his gaze, instead taking a seat beside Robert, her posture calm but unyielding. The chairman, a silver-haired man named Richard, opened the meeting with a bombshell. A hidden account tied to Margaret Coleman had been flagged for suspicious transactions, siphoning funds from the company's main supplier. The room buzzed with tension. James's face paled, sweat beading on his forehead. But Emily remained silent. She didn't need to speak, her presence was enough. Robert laid a stack of documents on the table, his voice cutting through the murmurs. I've been an investor here since day one. I trusted James to lead. But this stops now. I'm transferring my voting rights to my daughter, Emily, effective immediately. The boardroom erupted in whispers. James's wife? She's the heir, one executive muttered. Emily felt their eyes on her. But for the first time, she didn't shrink. She sat tall, her hands, once raw from scrubbing dishes for the Colemans, now resting confidently on the polished table. The meeting ended with James suspended pending investigation and Margaret ordered to apologize publicly and cooperate fully. Emily didn't gloat, she didn't need to. The truth was unraveling, and she was no longer the invisible woman in their story. Back at her parents' home, Emily's phone buzzed late one night. It was Ethan, her brother-in-law, his voice trembling. I'm so sorry, he said, that day at my birthday. When Mom hit you, I froze. I should have stopped her. His apology was raw, laced with guilt. Emily listened, her heart torn between resentment and pity. You watched, Ethan, she said softly. You all did. But words aren't enough now. Days later, a handwritten letter arrived, slipped under her door by Ethan. It was from Margaret, her once unyielding mother-in-law. The shaky script began with 3 words that stopped Emily's breath. Dear my daughter. Not, Emily. Not, that girl, but, daughter. Margaret poured out her regrets. Admitting her cruelty stemmed from fear of losing control, of an outsider taking what she'd built. She begged Emily to return. Not to save them, but to give her a chance to make amends. I never asked if you were okay. Margaret wrote. I failed you. Just let me hear you call me, Mom, one more time. Emily's eyes stung as she folded the letter. She wasn't ready to forgive. But the words cracked something open inside her, a flicker of hope that even the hardest hearts could soften. Meanwhile, the Coleman's world crumbled. Their bank accounts were frozen, their house seized in the fallout of the financial scandal. One rainy evening, Emily looked out her window to see Margaret and James standing at the gate. Drenched and defeated, clutching a single bag of belongings. Margaret's voice broke as she pleaded. Just one night, Emily. We'll leave tomorrow, James added. We don't expect anything, just a corner to wait out the storm. Emily hesitated, memories of her own humiliation flooding back. But she opened the gate, pointing to a small guest room in the back. Don't disturb my parents, she said, her voice steady but not cruel. That night, as rain pattered against the windows, Emily overheard Margaret sobbing in the guest room. I was wrong, Margaret whispered to James. I drove away the one person who held us together. James's voice was heavy with regret. I knew how Mom treated you. I should have spoken up. Emily stood frozen outside the door, a blanket in her hands, torn between anger and compassion. She didn't knock. returning to her room instead, where she sat staring at the ceiling, wrestling with the weight of their words. The next morning, Emily returned to her $1 million condo in Austin's heart. The key turned in the lock, and she stepped inside, the air thick with dust and memories. This was her sanctuary, bought with her own sweat and dreams. The furniture was untouched, but the wedding photo on the shelf lay face down, as if someone had tried to erase the past. She began cleaning, wiping away layers of neglect as if scrubbing away her pain. Ethan arrived, mop in hand, offering to help. "Mom asked me to give you this," he said, handing her another letter. Margaret's handwriting was frailer now, each word heavy with remorse. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," she wrote, "but I hope you'll let me try." As they cleaned together, Emily and Ethan worked in silence, the weight of their shared history hanging between them. The condo gleamed under the afternoon sun, its windows open to let in the breeze. Emily stepped onto the balcony, the city skyline sparkling below. She thought of Margaret's letter, Ethan's apology, and James's silence. Could family be salvaged? Had it ever truly existed? Forgiveness, she realized, wasn't about them. It was about freeing herself from the pain she'd carried too long. That evening, back at her parents' home, Emily sat down to dinner with her mom and dad. The table was simple: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans, but it felt like a feast. Her mother, Susan, smiled and said, "You're home now. This table's always got a place for you." As Emily took a bite, the warmth of the meal and her parents' love filled a void she'd forgotten existed. She wasn't erasing the past, but she was closing a chapter. Forgiveness might come, not because the Colemans deserved it, but because Emily deserved peace.